Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my new video. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about Venezuela and Trump's meeting with the big oil executives. Also going to be talking about Russia and Greenland and the NATO silence on Greenland. And I'm also going to be talking about what the Europeans can do to deter Trump from taking Greenland. I'm going to give you a step-by-step analysis of that. Before I do that, there seems to be American planes flying around Iran at the moment. The markets are planning on something major. You can see the markets here. You can see gold prices are just shooting up. You can see from today that they've just been shooting up. So the market seems to think there's something happening. American planes are flying in and out of Iran's outskirts. So I don't know if they're planning something or whether it's just for show for now. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll start with America and Trump, their meeting with the oil executives. And this was a funny meeting, by the way. I don't know if you guys have followed it, but in the middle of the meeting, Trump kept getting up and looking through some double doors, and he was looking through some double doors and into the garden of the White House, and he was saying things like, "Oh, look at my beautiful ballroom! Look how beautiful my ballroom's gonna be." And this was in the middle of the meeting with big oil executives, and like ExxonMobil and Halliburton and all these other oil executives were there. And he kept like getting up. I think he did it a few times and looking through, some doors, and he was thinking about his imaginary ballroom. And I think he's losing it, guys. I absolutely think he's losing it. And a couple of executives have sent a tweet not saying nice things about Trump. They said that he was absolutely smelling because he kept letting out some gas, and if you know what I mean. And he said he actually stunk up the room or something. And and then other executives were saying, Venezuela is basically uninvestable. So this article came out, and this article was basically talking about how Trump's plan on Venezuela is absolutely delusional. All the executives have said that they are not going to invest in Venezuela until the government gives guarantees for their safety and other guarantees that they want as well. And basically, all executives are not happy, and they're not happy about the way Trump is going about taking Venezuelan oil. The executives are not happy about that. They think that Trump is living in the 70s and 80s because these big oil companies, they don't need Venezuelan oil because end of the day, America is the biggest producer of oil in the world, and the American companies, and especially these oil companies, they rather focus and invest in countries and regions which have, security, which have long-term, profit making and long-term viability. But they are not going to invest in Venezuela because, in the day, Trump may have taken out Maduro, but he hasn't taken out the whole government. The government is still there. And the people in Venezuela, they are not going to allow a foreign company, especially foreigners like Americans, coming into their countries and stealing oil. If ExxonMobil or Halliburton, comes in, Trump is basically asking for 100 billion, by the way, investment by them. So if they come in and suddenly the Venezuelans start throwing rockets and rocket launchers into their investment, all that money is basically going to go to waste. All it takes is a couple of contractors to be dead in Venezuela, and Halliburton and ExxonMobil will be out of there. They don't need that kind of hassle. And not only that, Trump also wants profits. These oil companies that make profits in Venezuela, Trump is also asking for them to share their profits with Trump. And these oil companies are saying, no, no way. We have got all the risk. And basically, Trump wants to take all the profits, which is not going to happen. And also, these oil companies are saying the Venezuelan infrastructure is so bad that it's going to take at least 10 years to fix. So, if these companies invest 100 billion into Venezuela, into these oil facilities and infrastructure, who knows what's going to happen 10 years later? 10 years later, the whole environment could be even worse for the companies. There could be, you know, there could be new leadership. If a new leadership comes in, takes charge of America, they might have a different idea. They might release Maduro, or they might, have a completely do a complete 180 of compared to what Trump is doing. So these oil companies are not going to invest places where there's huge risk. It's just not worth it for them. And there was a middle of the meeting, one of the executives was asked by Trump, "Why did you leave? Why did you leave in 2019?" And the executive said, "We left because you placed sanctions on 2019 on Venezuela. That's why we left." And Trump was like, "Oh, okay." Trump basically places all these sanctions and he doesn't understand the consequences of it, or you know, he just doesn't understand the full picture, or he's very demented. The way he is thinking. I don't think he knows what he's doing, and he gets advice from people. He does it, and he doesn't think about all the consequences. So things are not looking good on the Venezuela front for America. Um, yeah, they may have taken out Maduro, but everything is still the same. Nothing's changed. The government is still the same, and yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I don't think there's going to be any difference with Venezuela. In fact, taking away Maduro has angered the Venezuelan even more. The fact that Americans could come into their countries and steal their leader. So imagine if China or Russia went into America and kidnapped Trump. Imagine what would happen then. Do you think the Americans would would sit there and do nothing? Of course not. They're going to start a nuclear war with Russia and China. So, this is deadly serious, guys. You cannot just go into a country. This is an international. This isn't how international law works. I gotta say, I gotta blame Israel for all of this, guys, because Israel has basically caused a mass genocide in Palestine and got away with it. There's no international law, and Israel has not been even punished or sanctioned by the West or anyone. So they've pretty much got away with a full-on genocide. So Trump has been looking at this, and America's been looking at this, and they've been thinking, what's the point? If Israel's got away with a mass genocide, they don't follow any international law. UN doesn't care what they do. So why should we? We're the superpower. We're the big superpower in this country. So we're not going to follow any international law either. We're going to do whatever we want. So Israel started this, and now America is basically taking it up another level. So you might say, "Oh, America never followed any international rules and stuff." Yeah, you might be right, but you know, it's never been as bad as this. Never. I mean, yeah, they've broke a few international laws and rules in the past, but they still, kept on, using the UN, and they were kind of following in international law in some extent. But not now. Trump has basically thrown away the book for international law completely. He's just doing whatever he wants. He'll invade whoever he wants. He will kidnap whoever he wants. He will have a war with whoever he wants. He doesn't need to go through UN. He'll just do whatever he wants. And that's the problem. When you don't follow international law, when you allow Israel to get away with what he has got away with, other countries will do the same, especially America. So yeah, so things are not looking good for America. I mean, people are just dumping dollars like crazy, guys. I mean, Trump is literally on a war path with anyone. He wants a. You could have a war with the Europeans, and it's just not going to stop. So I'm going to go to the next part. Because why hasn't Russia reacted to Trump's Greenland takeover bid? Because because Russia would be happy for America and Europe to fight amongst each other. I mean, this is going to be Russia's dream come true. To be honest, this is nobody ever would imagine the Americans and the Europeans fighting over Greenland. Never. And Russia's going to carry on doing its special military operation in Ukraine, and they're focused on that. They don't really care what Trump does. They know Trump is a loose cannon. And in fact, I think Trump has completely destroyed the negotiations with Russia as well. Trump has shown he's not to be trusted. He's stealing Russian tankers. I think he stole about 3 Russian tankers and attacked them as well. And the greatest thing that Trump has done, I think he tried to kill Putin because during the negotiations with when Trump was having a phone call with Putin during the negotiations, he told Putin to stay in his mansion wherever he was, calling from, and he said, "I'm going to call you back. I'm going to have a chat with Zelensky, and I'm going to call you back." Then a few hours later, the mansion that Putin was calling from was getting attacked by hundreds of drones from Ukraine. So, how did they know Putin was there? And why did Trump tell Putin to stay there for a couple of hours and wait for his phone call? So, Trump knew about this. And this isn't Trump's first time he did this, guys. He did this during negotiations with Hamas. Hamas leaders were in Qatar at the time. In Qatar, we're talking about. I don't know if you remember. And he was having a negotiation with them, and they knew the locations of these negotiators, Hamas negotiators in Qatar. And guess what? Israel bombed them, and Trump knew about this. And also, he did the same thing with Iran as well. During the negotiations with Iran, guess what happened? Yes, Israel attacked Iran again, right in the middle of a negotiation. And these intelligence and these satellite intelligence, phone intelligence. When you're on a phone call with someone, you can easily find the location where they're calling from, where signals and things like that. So Trump knew about all of this. He tries to pretend he doesn't, but he knows about this. There's also a story about when he went to North Korea. I don't know if you remember this story. He went to North Korea to meet with the leader there, and he ordered his CIA to basically infiltrate North Korea and place bombs and place spying equipment and things like that, which completely failed, by the way. It didn't work. But Trump is like that, guys. He will be friendly in front of your face, but behind your back, you cannot trust him. He does things like that, and yeah. So I think he's ruined his relationship with Russia now. Russia will carry on with SMO. He doesn't care if the Europeans and the Americans fight each other and kill each other over Greenland. Russia's got no interest for that, and neither do China. If Europeans and the Americans want to go head to head, China will not intervene. I'll tell you that right now. So what will the Europeans do? Let's talk about this. I mean, the NATO has been very silent in what Trump has been saying, invading Greenland. Normally, the puppet of NATO, I think his name is Rutte, and before it was Stoltenberg, and they're both obviously puppets of America because they basically repeat what America says. And NATO's been very silent about Greenland. Normally, they're very, vocal about Russia. Oh, Russia's evil. Russia's taking Ukraine. We gotta help Russia, and blah blah blah. But when America's gonna take Greenland, they're completely silent. Their own NATO member wants to invade another NATO member's territory. It's absolutely crazy. So the Europeans have said that Britain, Germany, and France are going to, place troops in Greenland. So is Denmark as well. And and I'm not sure if that's going to stop. If America wants to take Greenland, they can take it. It's not going to take much effort at all. The military for Britain, France, and Germany and Denmark together is not much. It really isn't much, to be honest. Um, and I don't think they're going to go have a nuclear war with each other as well, because they're both NATO. They're all NATO members, and I don't think it's going to go nuclear or anything. If the Europeans want to stop Trump from taking over Greenland, the Europeans need to grow some spine, guys. The first thing they need to do, the number one thing, is get rid of von der Leyen. Von der Leyen is a spy working for America, working for Israel. She has been undermining Europe for years and pushing them along the wrong path for years. She's been basically pushing American, policies in Europe. And she's like a de facto dictator in Europe. She has been absolutely detrimental for European interests. And they need to get rid of her. So Europeans need to grow a spine. They need, first of all, need to get rid of her. They need to get rid of all pro-American diplomats, and that includes, Callas and everyone else. So once they get rid of them, they need to place heavy sanctions on America. They need to basically stop European companies from investing in America. They need to bring them all back to Europe. They need to start placing sanctions on America and American companies. This includes X and Google and Facebook and Meta. We need to absolutely get rid of all American businesses and companies from Europe and start developing their own industry in Europe. And this goes for Britain as well. Britain has been absolutely destroyed by American companies. Everything here is American. Everything. You know, using just day to day life, everything is just American. For example, your mobile phone is American. You'll be either Apple or you'll be Samsung. But Samsung is pretty much, it's made in Korea, but most of the components are American components, and the software is Google, Android, and most of the components will be American components, chips, and other technology inside the Samsung phone. And if you want to order something, you order on Amazon here. Um, some of the supermarkets here are owned by Walmart, for example, Asda. Um, you just walk along the high street, every single business is pretty much an American business. The software we use in laptops, like Microsoft, is obviously American. Um, companies like Dell is American, which is the laptop itself. Um, even if you use an Apple laptop, you'll be an Apple software. Um, you, you, everything is pretty much American, guys. I work for a company called Oracle, and obviously Oracle is a database. And every single kind of technology, top technology that Britain is using is American technology, like Azure, which is an Amazon product. Obviously Oracle database. There's obviously kind of other technologies that we use as well. It's all American. Pretty much a day to day, everything is American. It's just absolutely has been destroyed, the British local economy. So the first thing to do is just get rid of all these American companies or really tax them heavily. You know, Elon Musk X and things like that, just tax them very, very heavily. So it becomes very, very hard to work in Europe. Plus, the Europeans will make lots of money from them if they tax them heavily. And just focus on building up European companies and stop letting American companies buy up European businesses. This is what they've been doing for years. American companies coming in, buying up, rest of British, buying up rest of European. They need to stop that. And then the Europeans and the British need to stop investing in America. They need to dump all their bonds, all of them, hundreds of billions of dollars of bonds. They need to just dump them all. And they need to start dropping the dollar. They need to start using the euro or the pound more in international trade, especially when it comes to oil and gas and other things as well. They need to stop using Visa and MasterCard because in Britain, every single bank uses these Visa and MasterCard as debit cards. So everyone's using that. So, basically they have to go through a process of de-Americanize their whole economy. Russia has done that. China has done that. And now the Europeans need to do it. This is de-risking themselves. This is the real de-risk that they have to do. And Britain needs to do that as well. If you want to be truly sovereign, this is what you need to do. And then Europeans need to start growing a spine, building up their own militaries. They need to get out of NATO. They need to stop using NATO weapons. They need to just build up their own military, build up their own weapons, and kicking out, immigrants and things like that, and have their own, European first policies. So it's not going to be easy, guys. It's going to be a lot of work. But how is that going to stop America from taking Greenland? Well, first of all, in the long term, in the short term, Europe is going to be really struggling. But the long term, this is going to be good for Europe. I think a lot of Europeans are waking up to the fact that America is actually not a friend, but it's an enemy. For years, they've been telling us that, China is the enemy, Russia is the enemy, but that's not true at all. It's America which is the real enemy, the real Satan. And I think the Europeans realize that now. But it's too late, unfortunately, for them. It's too late. However, if they do all of these things that I've said, things will look better for them. They also need to start making friends with Russia. They need to beg for forgiveness. They need to rebuild the Nord Stream and start, buying cheap Russian gas again. They need to stop buying American gas and oil. Really stop doing business with America to the point where American economy absolutely collapses. This is the only way. China's been dumping American bonds. They've been de-dollarizing the economy. Russia's been doing the same. And if the Europeans do the same, American economy will absolutely collapse, and you will see America basically will go into civil war. Dollar will collapse, and they will be separate. There will be civil wars, and America will separate into different states, and they will kick out Trump. This is the only way. That's the only way they will survive. The Europeans, and the Europeans also need to trade with China more. They need to get rid of this thinking about, China as a competitor and stuff. They need to start trading with China more and trading with America. That's the only way Europeans are going to survive. And if they do that properly, you know, Trump is not going to invade Greenland because economically it's going to destroy America. If Europeans do all of these stuff, they don't even need to fight the Americans militarily. America will just collapse within itself because if the Europeans stop doing trade, they dump all the dollars, they dump all the treasuries, they dump all the companies. Um, you know, America will just not be going to be able to compete with anything. They're going to go back to the depression in the 1930s because nobody wants to trade with them, and that's the only way this is going to work. And that's it, guys. I think Europeans will need to embrace China as the sole superpower in this world as well, because I think what America has told us is you cannot trust America as the sole superpower. You cannot trust them because you just see the way they're acting. You just see the way they're acting. They um they push regime change around the world. They start wars around the world. They'll fight with their allies. They'll invade whoever they want. They don't care about international law. You know, this is not how a superpower should act. Who's responsible with the superpower status? I think America has had its day. The world reserve currency has had its day. I think it's time for the dollar to collapse. And America has shown the world that they are not a country that can be trusted with the sole superpower status. They cannot be trusted to be the sole policeman around the world. So it's time for a new superpower, or even not one superpower, but a multipolar world where you have different superpowers running different parts of the world. And I think that's the best way to do this, and not one currency running it, but various currencies running the world reserve currency, or a basket of currencies, or even a BRICS currency. Who knows? But if the Europeans were smart, that's what they'll do, guys. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care for now.